The Great Hall was bigger than any building on Earth. It floated in space. A giant ring of glass and metal where the most powerful beings in the galaxy came to talk and make decisions. 47 different species sat in their assigned seats, arranged in circles that went from the center to the outer edges. The closer you sat to the center, the more important you were. Una Park sat in the outermost ring. She was Earth's ambassador, and her seat was as far from the center as possible. This was where probationary species belonged. Species that were new. Species that had not yet earned their place. Species that the older races did not fully trust. She wore a simple black suit, her dark hair pulled back neatly. Her face showed nothing, but inside, she felt the familiar burn of frustration. 80 years. Earth had been part of this galactic union for 80 years. And still they treated humans like children who had wandered into a room full of adults. Beside her sat Admiral Junho, Kung. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too many battles. He was Earth's military representative, and his job was to watch and listen. Right now, he was doing both, and he did not like what he was seeing. At the center of the hall, a being made of living crystal was speaking. This was Counselor Tovin of the Valorians, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. His body caught the light and threw it in 1,000 directions as he moved. His voice was like wind through glass. "The petition from Earth is denied," Tovin said. "Humans are not ready for expanded trade routes. They are too young, too unpredictable. We must be patient with them." Una stood slowly. All eyes turned to her. Some looked curious. Most looked bored. A few looked annoyed that she would dare to speak. "With respect, Counselor," she said, keeping her voice calm, "Earth has followed every rule. We have paid every fee. We have never broken a single law of the Union. What more must we do to earn your trust?" Tovin's crystal face showed no expression. "You must wait, Ambassador. Time will tell us if humanity can be trusted. Your species is barely a moment old compared to ours. Come back in another century. Perhaps then we will reconsider." Una wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them that a century was too long, that Earth needed those trade routes now, that her people were tired of being treated like second-class citizens. But she had learned that arguing with the council was like shouting at a mountain. It did not move. It did not care. "I understand," she said quietly, and sat back down. Junho leaned close to her. "They will never accept us," he whispered. "We could follow their rules for 1,000 years, and they would still see us as children." Una did not answer. She knew he was right. The meeting continued for several more hours. Trade agreements? Border disputes. Resource allocations. Earth was mentioned only twice more, both times as an example of a species that needed guidance and supervision. When the session finally ended, Una and Junho walked through the corridors of the station. Other delegates passed them, some nodding politely, others pretending not to see them at all. A group of Keth soldiers stood near a window, their insect-like bodies clicking and buzzing as they talked among themselves. They watched the two humans walk by with their compound eyes, and Una felt something cold in their gaze. Something like hunger. "I do not like the Keth," Junho said quietly after they passed. "They look at us like we are food. They look at everyone that way," Una replied. "They are predators. It is their nature that does not make me feel better." They reached the human section of the station, a small area with a few rooms and a single observation deck. It was not much, but it was theirs. Una stood at the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the endless darkness, was Earth. Her home. Her people? Why do they fear us? She asked more to herself than to Junho. "We are not strong like the Valorians. We do not have the numbers of the Keith. We are just humans. Why do they keep us at a distance?" Junho stood beside her. "I have wondered the same thing. There are old records, sealed by the founders themselves. No one is allowed to read them. But I have heard rumors that they mention Earth. They mention humans. And whatever they say, it scared the founders enough to leave us alone for thousands of years while they uplifted other species. You think they know something about us? Something we do not know ourselves?" I think they are afraid of what we might become. Yuna shook her head. That is foolish. We are not a threat to anyone. We just want to live in peace, to trade, to explore. We are not conquerors. Junho was silent for a long moment. Then he said, maybe that is what scares them. They have seen conquerors before. They know how to handle conquerors, but they do not know how to handle us. Before Yuna could respond, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed across the observation deck. Junho's communicator buzzed urgently, and he pulled it from his pocket. His face went pale as he read the message. What is it? Yuna asked. Jun looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, she saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Selena 7, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The Keth have attacked Selene 7. That is impossible. Selena 7 is a civilian colony. There are over 4 million people there. Families. Children. Yunho shook his head slowly. Not anymore. The Keth fleet hit them 17 minutes ago. They did not send a warning. They did not make demands. They just... attacked. Yuna felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Survivors! The look on Junho's face told her everything she needed to know. 4 million people. Gone in 17 minutes? The galaxy had just made its biggest mistake. It had hurt humanity. And humanity would never, ever forget. Captain Minho Lee had been on patrol when the call came. His ship, the ESS Horizon, was only 2 hours away from Selena 7. He ordered maximum speed immediately, pushing the engines until they screamed. But space was vast, and 2 hours was an eternity. When he finally arrived, there was nothing left to save. The colony had been built inside a crater on the moon's surface. Domes of glass and steel had protected the people inside, keeping them warm and safe while they built their new home. Now those domes were broken, shattered. The ground was black with fire damage. And the air that had once filled the colony had escaped into the cold emptiness of space by Minho. Walked through the ruins in his suit, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. Bodies lay everywhere, men, women, children. They had not even had time to run. The Keth had struck so fast that most people had died without knowing what was happening. He searched for hours. He called her name until his voice broke. And then, in the ruins of the medical center, he found what he was looking for. A small metal tag, bent and burned. The name on it was still readable. Hannah Lee, medical officer, his sister. Minho fell to his knees in the dust. He held the tag in both hands, pressing it against his chest. He did not cry. He could not cry. The grief was too big for tears. It filled his entire body, crushing his heart, stealing his breath. Hannah had been 26 years old. She had joined the colony to help people, to heal the sick and injured. She had sent him a message just 3 days ago, telling him about the garden she was growing in her small room. Tomatoes she was trying to grow. Tomatoes on a moon millions of kilometers from Earth. Now she was gone. Now they were all gone. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Every screen, every radio, every device carried the same terrible message. Selene 7 had been destroyed. 4 million humans were dead. The Keth Collective had claimed responsibility, calling it a preemptive purification strike against a species they considered dangerous in soul. At the Global Command Center, President Do-Yeon Choi sat at the head of a long table. Around him were the most powerful military leaders on Earth. Fleet Admiral Sujin Beek sat to his right, her face as cold and hard as stone. She was a small woman with short gray hair, but her eyes held a fire that made even the bravest soldiers nervous. The council has responded, Ambassador Yuna said through the communication screen. She had aged 10 years in the past few hours. They have declared this an internal Keth matter. They will not help us. They will not punish the Keth. They expect us to accept this and move on. The room exploded with angry voices. Generals shouted. Admirals slammed their fists on the table. But President Do-Yeon raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. They want us to accept it, he said quietly. They want us to bow our heads and cry quietly in the corner while they go back to their meetings and their trade deals. They think we are weak. They think we have no choice. He stood up slowly. They are wrong. Admiral Sujin leaned forward. Sir, if we strike back, we could be facing the entire Union. We have a defense fleet, yes, but nothing compared to what they can bring against us. Doyan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell me, Admiral, have you ever heard of the Black Contingency? The room went very quiet. Some of the officers exchanged confused looks, but Admiral Sujin's eyes widened slightly. She knew that is a myth, one general said. A story we tell recruits to make them feel better. There is no Black Contingency. Follow me, Sujin said. She stood and walked to the door. All of you, it is time you saw the truth. They traveled by secure transport to a location in the mountains, a place that did not exist on any map. Sujin led them through a series of checkpoints, each one requiring more security codes than the last. Finally, they reached a massive vault door that looked like it could survive a nuclear explosion. The door opened. Inside was a room the size of a football stadium. And in that room were things that should not exist. Ships, weapons, armor, technology that Earth had supposedly never developed. Technology that the Union had said was impossible. For 120 years, Sujin said, Earth has been preparing. We never trusted the Union. We never believed they would protect us. So we built. In secret, in silence, we created weapons they have never seen, ships they cannot imagine. We hid them here, and on Mars, and in the asteroid belt. We waited for the day when we would need them. She turned to face the stunned officers. That day has come. President Do-Yun looked at the weapons, at the ships, at the proof of humanity's secret strength. Then he turned to Sujin. How long until we are ready? 3 months. We need to recall all our people, arm our ships, and prepare our soldiers. 3 months, and we will have the largest fleet this galaxy has ever seen. Do-Yan nodded slowly. Then send the word. Every human ship returns to Seoul. Every citizen comes home. We are closing our borders. We are going silent. He walked to a window that looked out over the hidden fleet. And when we emerge, the galaxy will learn why they were right to fear us. That night, President Do-Yan addressed Earth. Billions of people watched as he stood before the cameras. His face calm, but his voice filled with cold fury. They called us young, he said. They called us volatile. They murdered 4 million of our brothers and sisters, and the galaxy looked away. But we will not look away. We will not forget. We will not forgive. He paused, letting the words sink in. Recall every ship. Close every border. We are going home. And when we return, we will teach the galaxy what it means to hurt humanity. The stars went quiet that night, and the galaxy would soon learn why. 3 months passed, and the galaxy grew nervous. At first, no one cared about Earth's silence. The humans were grieving, the council said. They would cry for a while, then accept their place. This was how things worked. Small species did not challenge the old order. They learned their lesson and moved on. But the silence continued. Every human ship had returned to Sol System. Every human station had gone dark. Trade vessels that approached Earth's borders were turned away without explanation. Communication requests went unanswered. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. Counselor Tovin stood before the assembly, his crystal body catching the light. There is nothing to worry about, he said. The humans are mourning. They will return when they are ready. We have more important matters to discuss. But not everyone believed him. Rin was an intelligence officer for the Mora Dominion. Her species was amphibious, with smooth blue skin and large dark eyes that could see in almost complete darkness. She had spent her career studying other species, learning their secrets, predicting their behavior. And something about Earth's silence felt wrong to her. She began to dig through old records. Files that had been sealed for thousands of years. Documents that no one had read in living memory. Most of them were heavily protected, but Rin was very good at her job. Piece by piece, she uncovered fragments of the truth. The founders. The ancient race that had created the Galactic Union had visited Earth 12,000 years ago. They had watched the humans, studied them, run tests and simulations. And then they had done something strange. They had placed a quarantine around Sol System. They had warned all future species to leave the humans alone. And they had sealed the records of why. The fragments Rin found were incomplete, but they painted a disturbing picture. The founders had been afraid, not of human strength or human technology. They had been afraid of something else, something inside humans that no other species possessed in such concentration. Rin did not know what it was yet, but she intended to find out. While the galaxy waited and wondered, Earth was transforming. The orbital shipyards around Earth had always looked harmless. Small stations that built cargo ships and transport vessels. Nothing threatening. Nothing impressive. But that had been a lie. Now, the stations revealed their true purpose. Hidden sections opened up. Secret factories came online. And ships began to emerge. Not cargo ships. Not transport vessels. Warships. Dreadnoughts with hulls of black metal and weapons that glowed with deadly light. Carriers that could hold thousands of fighters. Destroyers that moved like predators through the darkness of space, Captain. Minho Lee watched from the observation deck of his new ship, the ESS Vengeance. It was a beautiful vessel, sleek and powerful, built for one purpose: war. He had accepted the command without hesitation. He had nothing left to lose. His sister was dead. His grief had hardened into something cold and sharp. He would make the Keth pay for what they had done. Thousands of volunteers had joined the military in the months since the massacre. Young men and women who had lost family on Selene 7. Citizens who were tired of being treated as inferior. People who wanted to show the galaxy that humanity was not weak. Among them was a young pilot named Juwan Yoon. She was 23 years old. With short black hair and steady hands, her parents had died on Selena 7. They had been teachers, helping to educate the children of the colony. Now they were gone, like everyone else. Jiwon did not talk much. She did not need to. Her skills spoke for her. In the training simulations, she had the highest scores anyone had ever seen. She flew like she had been born in space, moving her fighter with a precision that made even veteran pilots nervous. Minho met her on the training deck one day. She was sitting alone, checking her equipment with focused attention. He sat down beside her. "You are Jawan, yes? The one they call the Ghost." She looked at him with calm eyes. "They call me that because they cannot hit me in the simulations." "Your parents were on Selena 7? "Yes. I lost my sister there." Guan was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I do not fight for revenge. Revenge is hot. It makes you sloppy. I fight because it is right. Because someone must answer for what happened. Because the galaxy needs to learn that humans are not prey." Minho nodded slowly. "You will be part of my strike wing. When we hit the Keth, I want you at my side." "I'll be there, Captain." In the hidden command center beneath Seoul, Fleet Admiral Sujin Beek reviewed the final reports. 4,000 warships. 2 million soldiers. Weapons that the galaxy had never seen. They were ready. President Doyan stood beside her, looking at the massive display screen that showed Earth and its surrounding fleet. "The Keth are celebrating," he said quietly. "They think they have broken us. They think we are hiding because we are afraid." "Let them think that," Sujin replied. "Their surprise will be all the greater when we arrive." "How long until we launch?" 7 days. Final preparations are nearly complete. Doyon nodded. "Send a message to the council. Tell them we have mourned enough. Tell them we are ready to discuss the Selene 7 incident." Sujin raised an eyebrow. "You want to talk to them?" "No. I want them to be watching when we emerge. I want them to see what they have created." 7 days later, every long-range sensor in Keith's space lit up with warnings. Something massive was coming. Something that should not exist. The silence was over. The storm had arrived. The Keth had never known fear. They were predators, the hunters of the galaxy. For 10,000 years they had conquered and consumed, spreading across the stars like a plague of hungry insects. They had faced many enemies, and they had defeated them all, but they had never faced humanity. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Keth's space. 4,000 warships, arranged in perfect formation, their black holes drinking in the light of distant stars. At the center of the formation was the ESS Terra, a command ship the size of a small moon. Its weapons platforms bristled with technologies that the galaxy had never seen. On the bridge of the Terra, Fleet Admiral Sujin Beek stood like a statue of iron. Her eyes were fixed on the main display, which showed the Keth defensive fleet scrambling to meet them. 3,000 ships, a force that would have terrified any other species. Sujin smiled. It was not a kind smile. "All ships," she said, her voice calm and cold. "Begin the attack." The battle started at 0600 hours, Earth Standard Time. The human fleet moved forward like a single living thing, each ship knowing its place, each captain knowing their role. Rail cannons fired first, sending chunks of metal at speeds that turned them into weapons of pure destruction. The first wave of Keth's ships disappeared in flashes of light and fire. Then came the missiles. Not ordinary missiles. Antimatter warheads that burned hotter than stars. They punched through Keth's shields like paper, turning proud warships into expanding clouds of debris. And then came the blacklight. No one in the galaxy knew what it was. The Keth certainly did not understand it, as their ships began to simply stop working. Systems failed. Engines died. Weapons went cold. Ships that had been ready to fight suddenly became nothing more than floating metal coffins. "What is happening?" screamed the Keth High Commander, watching his fleet die around him. "What are they doing to us?" No one could answer him. No one understood. Captain Minho Lee led his strike wing through the chaos of battle. The ESS Vengeance was a fast ship, built for quick strikes and rapid movement. Around him flew 200 fighters, the best pilots Earth had to offer, and at his wing, exactly where she had promised to be, was Ji-Won Yoon. "Strike wing, this is the captain," Minho said into his communicator. "Our target is the Keth High Command Station. We punch through their defensive line, we hit the station, we end this. Stay tight, stay focused, and remember why we are here." For Celine Sefen, Ji-Won's voice came back. Quiet, but firm. For Selena 7, the entire wing repeated. They dove into the battle like arrows into flesh. Keth fighters swarmed to meet them, their insect-like ships clicking and buzzing as they fired. But human pilots were different. Human pilots had something the Keth did not understand. They had rage. They had grief. They had a burning need to make things right. Ji-Won flew like she was made of light and wind. Her fighter danced through the enemy formation, dodging shots that should have killed her, returning fire with deadly accuracy. 1 Keth cruiser. 2, 3. They fell before her guns like leaves in autumn. "Ghost, you have 4 on your tail," someone shouted. Ji-Won did not panic. She pulled her fighter into a tight spin, cut her engines, and let herself fall backward through space. The Keth ships flew past her, confused by the strange move. She opened fire from behind, destroying all 4 before they could react. "Clear," she said calmly. Misho shook his head in amazement. They had called her the Ghost because she could not be hit. Now he understood why. The strike wing reached the high command station in less than an hour. It was a massive structure, covered in weapons platforms and defensive shields. The heart of the Keth military. The place where they had planned the attack on Selena 7. All ships. "Concentrate fire on the shield generators," Minho ordered. "Once those shields are down, we hit the command center." The attack was brutal and precise. Human ships poured fire into the station's defenses, overwhelming them through sheer force and determination. The shields flickered, died. The station was exposed. And then Ji-Won's fighter took a hit. It came from nowhere. A lucky shot from a dying Keth ship. Her fighter spun wildly, smoke pouring from its engines. Alarm screamed in her cockpit. She had seconds to react. "Ghost is hit." Someone yelled. "She is going down." Minho did not hesitate. He pulled the Vengeance around, pushing through enemy fire to reach her position. He saw her fighter tumbling through space, saw the small flash as she ejected. Her escape pod floated alone in the chaos of battle, tiny and fragile. "I have her," Minho said. "Cover me." His wing formed a protective circle around him as he moved to catch the pod. Enemy fire exploded all around them. 2 human fighters were destroyed, their pilots dying so that Jiwan might live. But they did not stop. They did not waver. Min caught the pod in his ship's emergency bay. He felt it lock into place and allowed himself one moment of relief. "Ghost is secure," he reported. "Continue the attack." The station fell an hour later. Its command center was destroyed, its leaders killed or captured. The Keth fleet, what remained of it, fled in all directions. The battle was over. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, 47 species watched in stunned silence. Their sensors had shown them everything. The impossible weapons. The perfect tactics. The total destruction of a force that should have been unbeatable. Counselor Tovin's crystal body had gone dark. He had no words. None of them did. Rin, the Mora intelligence officer, finally understood what she had found in the old records. She finally knew what the Founders had feared. President Do-Yan's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of everything humanity had suffered. "We did not come for conquest," he said. "We came for justice. The beings responsible for Selene 7 have answered for their crimes. But we are not finished." Paused, and his eyes seemed to look directly at each member of the council. "Now we need to talk about why you left us alone for so long. Now we need to discuss the truth that you have hidden from us. And if you refuse, we will find it ourselves." The message ended. The galaxy was silent. The reckoning had only begun. 1 week after the battle, the Galaxy Council gathered again. But this time, everything was different. Human soldiers stood at every entrance to the Great Hall. They did not threaten anyone. They did not need to. Their presence was enough, a reminder of what humanity could do when it was pushed too far. The seats had been rearranged. Earth's delegation no longer sat in the outer ring with the other probationary species. They sat at the center, where the most powerful species had always gathered. Some of the older races grumbled about this. No one dared to complain out loud. President Do-Yan Choi walked slowly to the speaker's platform. Behind him came Ambassador Unipark and Fleet Admiral Sujin Beek. They stood in silence, looking out at the assembled species. Some looked frightened. Others looked angry. Most simply looked confused. 12,000 years ago, Do-Yan began, the Founders came to Earth. They watched us when we were young. When we still lived in simple homes and fought with bronze weapons, they studied us. They ran their tests and their simulations, and then they left. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. They did not uplift us, as they did with so many other species. They did not give us technology or knowledge or help of any kind. Instead, they placed a quarantine around our solar system. They warned everyone to stay away from us. And they sealed the records of why. Turned to look at Counselor Tovin, whose crystal body had dimmed to almost nothing. "I want those records unsealed. I want to know what the Founders saw when they looked at humanity. I want to know what scared them so much that they left us alone for 12,000 years. Tovin's voice was weak. "Those records are sacred. They cannot be opened by request. They can only be opened by the Arbiter." "Then bring me the Arbiter." There was movement at the back of the hall. A being of pure light drifted forward, passing through the rows of delegates like a ghost moving through walls. This was the Arbiter, the oldest living being in the galaxy. It had been alive when the Founders still walked among the stars. It had been the keeper of their secrets ever since they disappeared. The Arbiter stopped before President Do-Gen. Its voice was like music made of light. "You have earned the right to know," it said. "What you have done, what you have become, proves that the Founders were correct in their assessment. The records will be opened." Symbols appeared in the air, ancient writing that no living species could read. The Arbiter translated them, its voice filling the hall. 12,000 years ago, the Founders came to study the young species of the galaxy. They found many promising races. The Valorians with their logic, the Mara with their patience, the Keth with their hunger. Each species had strengths and weaknesses that could be predicted and managed. The symbols shifted, forming images. A blue planet, green lands, and blue oceans. Earth as it had been 12,000 years ago. Then they found humanity, and humanity was different. The images showed ancient humans, building, fighting, loving, dying, living. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest. They did not live the longest or breed the fastest. By every measurement the founders used, humans were ordinary, average, nothing special. The Arbiter paused, but the founders saw something else, something that existed in no other species in such concentration. They called it adaptive rage, the ability to take pain and loss and suffering and transform it into something else, something powerful, something unstoppable. Images changed again. Humans facing disasters, wars, plagues, famines, and always rising again. Other species conquered through logic or instinct, through careful planning or overwhelming numbers, but humans conquered through spite, through grief, through love so fierce that it became indistinguishable from fury. When a human lost something precious, they did not simply mourn. They transformed. They became something harder, something sharper, something that would never stop until they had achieved their goal. The hall was completely silent. Every eye was fixed on the images floating in the air. The founders ran 10,000 simulations. They asked one simple question: what would happen if humanity was uplifted and joined the galactic community? In 3,000 simulations, humanity unified the galaxy through peace and cooperation. In 4,000 simulations, humanity burned it to ashes through war and conquest. In the remaining 3,000, the results were unclear. The Arbiter turned to face the Council. Founders were not willing to take that risk, so they placed a quarantine around Earth. They left the humans to develop on their own, hoping that time would soften their nature. And they left a warning in every archive, in every record, in every memory that survived. The ancient symbols formed one final message, and the Arbiter spoke it aloud. Do not wake the humans until they wake themselves. And when they do, pray they forgive you. Silence filled the hall. Absolute. Complete. President Doyon stood motionless for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet, but carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. You feared what we might become, so you abandoned us. You let us fight our own wars. You let us suffer alone through plagues and disasters and tragedies that your technology could have prevented. You watched us from a distance, waiting to see if we would destroy ourselves. He stepped closer to the assembled delegates. And when your own members murdered 4 million of our people, you looked away. You called it an internal matter. You expected us to accept it. His eyes moved slowly across the room, meeting the gaze of species after species. We do not want your union. We do not want your fear. We do not want your pity, or your admiration, or your respect. We want only one thing: to be left alone to live our lives in peace. He turned toward the viewport, where the stars burned cold and distant. But understand this clearly: humanity will never be quarantined again. We will never be ignored again. And if anyone, anywhere, for any reason, threatens our people, our homes, or our children, we will teach the galaxy why the founders were afraid. He looked back at the Council one final time. We are not your enemies. We do not wish to be. But we will be if you force us. The choice is yours. On the observation deck of the ESS Vengeance, Captain Minho Lee stood watching Earth rise in the distance. The blue planet hung in the darkness like a jewel. Beautiful and fragile and incredibly precious. Footsteps approached behind him. He did not need to turn to know who it was. Giwan Yoon stood beside him, her arm in a sling from her injuries. She said nothing. She did not need to. They had fought together. They had bled together. They understood each other without words. What happens now? She finally asked. Me considered the question. We rebuild. We remember. We make sure that nothing like Selena 7 ever happens again. And if it does? He looked at her, and something like a smile crossed his face. Then we do what humans have always done. We take our pain, we take our loss, we take our grief, and we turn it into something the universe will never forget. Juan nodded slowly. Good. They stood together in silence, watching their home planet turn slowly in the light of its star. Behind them, the fleet waited. 4,000 ships. Millions of soldiers. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. But that was not what made humanity dangerous. What made humanity dangerous was much simpler. Much older. Much more powerful than any weapon or ship or army. Humanity loved. Humanity grieved. Humanity remembered. And humanity never ever forgave those who hurt the people they loved. The galaxy had learned this lesson. The galaxy would never forget, and neither would humanity.